All right, so again, welcome to the virtual open house for the Master of Arts Management. Thank you for joining us today. For our agenda, we're just going to do some brief introductions. The people who are presenting, I can just briefly say who they are in the next slide. I'll go over Columbia as a school. I'll talk a little bit about facilities, and then I'll hand it over to Justin for the overview and the curriculum, and then I'll talk about the admissions process. Then we'll talk about the current student experience and do a Q&A. So our presenters today are myself. I'm Kelly Schmader, the Assistant Director of Graduate Admissions. I'm also an alumna of the Master of Arts program. I graduated in 2019. And then Justin, will you introduce yourself?
Hey everyone, my name is Justin Sinkovich. I'm an associate professor in the Business and Entrepreneurship department, and I also direct our graduate programs, which are the Entrepreneurship for Creatives Master's program and the Masters of Arts Management. It is great to be with all of you today.
And then Valentine, will you chime in and introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm a second year student in the MAM, Master of Arts Management program. I'll be graduating this May, and I'm super excited to be here and tell you a little more about my experience after the presentation.
Excellent, thank you. So for those of you who might not be in Chicago or just starting to research Columbia, we just wanted to give you some quick facts about the school. Columbia's mission is to educate students who will communicate creatively and shape the public's perceptions of issues and events and who will author the culture of their times. So that's kind of the top line of our mission statement, which we think is particularly relevant right now as an arts and media school. It just gives you an idea of what the Columbia student experience is all about. About half of the student population identifies as a person of color, so it's a really diverse school. And we feel that reflects kind of like the nature of contemporary America and really adds to the creative and innovative community we have here. We're located in the heart of downtown Chicago's Cultural Mile. The neighborhood is actually called the South Loop. I'll be showing you just kind of on a map exactly where we are in the next slide. And about 7,000 students attend Columbia. It's largely an undergraduate institution, so the School of Graduate Studies has about 175 to 225 students on a given year. But this is because our programs are actually designed for relatively small cohort sizes, so students receive a lot of attention from our faculty. If you went to undergrad, for example, at a large state school, you will not be in 100-person style lecture classes while you're in grad school here. All right, so just facilities in the campus map. On the left here is the Buckingham Fountain. It's like a major landmark in Chicago, especially if you're driving up on Lakeshore Drive here. In the back is one of their biggest buildings, previously known as the Sears Tower. It's now called the Willis Tower. And Columbia is a little bit over here down on Michigan. So this map here, obviously it's kind of hard to imagine what the buildings would be like just looking at a map on a screen. But it's just to give you kind of a sense of where we are in relation to some major parts of the city. So here's the fountain, and here's like the Shedd Aquarium, the Field Museum, and Soldier Field, and here's Columbia. So it's about 2 blocks wide by like a mile north-south. So campus is still pretty centrally located, like all the buildings are near each other. And the one building that's really kind of important to point out is this one here. It's 618 South Michigan. I'll talk about that on the next slide. The only other point I want to make is all these purple dots you see here on our campus map are CTA stations. So CTA is Chicago Transit Authority. Columbia is pretty easy to access from basically any train, and there's a lot of buses that run through campus as well. Excuse me. So in terms of our buildings, 618 South Michigan Avenue, which you can see here, is home to business and entrepreneurship, and where most of the classes take place when they're in person. Another important building to point out is 623 South Wabash, because it's home to the Hogan Gallery, Shop Columbia, where students can sell their work, House, which is a student event space that's commonly used by events classes, and Gallery Management runs Hogan, which I will show you an image of in the next slide. And then 624 South Michigan houses some B&E classes, but it's also where the library is. And then a couple more space highlights that might be relevant for you as you go through the program. The first is the Hogan Project, which is the gallery space that's managed by the Gallery Management Practicum with the faculty member Bob Blanford. This is an example of what it looks like during one of their exhibitions. And then the other one, and this kind of fuzzy photo, is the Museum of Contemporary Photography, which is located at 600 South Michigan. Both arts management and photography students have applied and worked for the NSCP in the past when there are openings. These kinds of jobs can range in their title, example being like a curatorial assistant where you'd help a curator with planning a show, or operations assistant where you might help with installation. So now I'm going to hand it over to Justin to kind of talk about the program as a whole and some curriculum.
Sure. Yeah. So Master's of Arts Management, it's a 2-year program that would include the fall and spring semesters for 2 years. We also do have we go back to school after the holidays in late January. So we do have some elective opportunities during the that January term. They refer to as J term. And some of those include study away programs where you can travel and have an immersive arts management experience in places like Rome and Miami. So yeah, it's really designed to be a full-time program. It's something that most of our classes are during the day, and the required classes only run once a year. So it's best to attend full-time. That being said, if there are parts of the program or you really want to try to accomplish the program part-time, that's something we can talk about to see if that's the right fit for you. And yeah, you would start in the fall because there are some foundational classes in the fall that you would start with. And yeah, our incoming class size is typically about 15 to 20 students. So like Kelly mentioned, it's very tight knit, and I'm sure Valentine can speak to this as well. It's a tight knit cohort. You're in a nice size class with a lot of good ideas, but it's not too big where you get lost in the shuffle, and you have a very close relationship with not only your instructors, your professors, but also all of your classmates. Cool. So the Master's of Arts Management, the required classes are really foundational. They're for people that maybe don't have any management background whatsoever, or management education. That's totally fine. We have people that are often wanting to pivot from maybe an artistic career. Maybe you're a dancer or a painter or a musician or a filmmaker or something like that, but you want to learn more about the business side. So the core curriculum provides you with a strong foundation in business. I myself went to business school in undergrad, and I can say that, and graduate school, and I can say that it gives you a strong foundation in all the principles of business, but all wrapped within an arts perspective. So you're studying economics and law and finance and accounting and other business curriculum, but all within the context of creative industries. And you have folks that are wanting to be in visual arts, performing arts, music, media, visual arts, and more. And you get a really well-rounded, you can focus specifically on what you want to do, but you get a really well-rounded perspective from all of those other folks. We also have, our faculty are still doing what we're talking about. I currently run a record label and put out music all the time. I'm a Grammy voting music producer. I do digital marketing consulting. I manage the music for several artists, including now Chris Redd from Saturday Night Live and other folks. So I'm still doing stuff, and that's a very typical story of all of our faculty. They're all still out there hustling, doing what they're talking about, staying relevant. And that's easy to do when you're in Chicago. We're right downtown, as Kelly mentioned. All around us is such a vibrant and diverse artistic community where you can just walk down the street or take a quick train or something like that and get to some of the best galleries, some of the best theaters, some of the best management companies, and everything in between. So, and also the program has been around for a long time, and we have some great students that have graduated from the program, and we're embedded heavily into the Chicago arts and entertainment scene, but also in other cities and all over the place. So we have a ton, and Columbia itself is a big art school that's been around since the 1800s. So we have an expansive network all over the place that can help you connect and get a foothold into what you want to do. All right, so you can see what we're doing here in the first 2 semesters. We start out with foundational classes, so marketing, accounting, and economics. Again, all of those are within the context of the arts, entertainment, and media. Then you do, in your first semester, have an elective that you can take. And one thing I saw in the previous slide that I didn't mention is we have a ton of great practicums. And those practicum courses you learn by doing stuff. So we have a class where you run an art gallery, which is the Hoken Gallery that Kelly mentioned. You work in a digital marketing agency in my class. You produce a festival. You run a record label. Things like that. So you get to take a deeper dive, but you get to learn by actually doing it instead of just hearing about it. So those are some of our electives. So in semester 2, you would get into financial management. So that kind of is more finance and building on your accounting class, a law class, and leadership, which is very important in management as things are constantly changing and innovating. You have to be a good leader. And again, you have an elective, and there are other electives that are not just practicum classes. There's a data analytics elective. There's a negotiating skills elective where you learn to be a good negotiator. And again, we have travel away opportunities as well that are classes for credit. So that's year 1. And then in year 2, you can see 2 more required courses. Strategic planning. So that's basically creating a strategic plan, how to do that, and then actually, practicing doing that for a project. And then new media strategies. That's a class that I teach, and that is digital marketing. So you learn everything from, website and branding strategy, how to build an effective website, how to do search engine optimization, doing email marketing campaigns, of course, social media marketing campaigns, doing longer form content such as podcasts and videos and things like that. We get into emerging media such as augmented reality and virtual reality. And all that good stuff. So it's a really fun class. Last night we had that class, and my friend who is the head of social media promotion for all of LinkedIn, good friend of mine, he came in and spoke to the class. It was really great. We actually stayed late. Everybody was so excited about what we learned in that class. And then again, elective credits, which I've talked a lot about. You can see you have a ton of flexibility there with your elective credits. And the only thing, again, we have a great array where you can take a deeper dive into specific disciplines or specific topics. And then also you can take some courses outside of our program. So if you want to take something from the film department or the art and design department or something like that, you're able to do that, of course, as long as they have space for you and it's appropriate for you. You also can do an internship for credit, and you also can do independent projects and independent studies for credit. So if you have a project you're working on, you would have a faculty mentor, such as myself. I'm working with one student this semester, and I help guide them in their independent project. And then same, if you're looking for an internship, again, we're extremely well connected in Chicago and beyond, and we can help connect you with a good internship. We also have a career center that is extremely helpful in doing that as well. So that's year 2.
Well, I'll take it from here for some admissions information. A common question we get in the School of Graduate Studies is funding your education, exactly how you can approach that. So we have 4 kind of major buckets that we like to talk about. The first is scholarships, of course. Columbia has a variety of scholarships for both incoming and continuing students. And we have a scholarship finder that kind of collects all this information, but the important thing to note for incoming student scholarships is that all of those are awarded as part of the admissions process. So we baked in your scholarship application process into the admissions process. So when the review committee is looking at your application, they will be considering you for scholarships based on the merit of your application. So there is no need to apply for anything separately. Past the first semester, the continuing scholarships you can research on that website. Those you will have to apply for, but there is at least one arts management specific one, so I definitely encourage you to look into it if you are admitted. The next is working on campus. All graduate students, both international and domestic, can work up to 20 hours a week on campus. There is one position that we also award as part of the admissions process. That's the graduate assistantship. This is essentially a job with the business and entrepreneurship department. So if you are awarded the assistantship, you will know as part of the admissions process, basically. The other positions will require a separate application. Either the School of Graduate Studies team will let you know about those kinds of positions. A good example is working as a teaching assistant for the Big Chicago courses. But also we have a job portal called Handshake for both off-campus and on-campus jobs. And if you want to potentially work for, let's say, the alumni office and helping them with marketing, there might be a position open for that. You could apply to it just like a regular job. And then, of course, working off campus is an option. This really only works for domestic students because you can't work off campus if you have an F1 visa. But we have a student employment portal called Handshake, as I mentioned, that will list jobs that are off campus because certain employers like to come to Columbia. And then academic departments like business and entrepreneurship and the career center will, help you with internships and other opportunities as well. One thing to note here is I commonly am asked, can I work full time while also being in the Master of Arts Management program? And Justin noted this earlier when he said it's, traditionally full time, which is that you will have some classes during the day, and classes meet once a week and are typically 3 hours. So it's a little hard to make it work if you, let's say, were a receptionist where you had to be physically present from 9 to 5 at like a certain location. But I have known students who have jobs that are flexible in their scheduling, and they can usually make it work around the schedule. It's just the traditional 9 to 5 isn't necessarily always going to work. And then lastly, federal loans, also just for domestic students. You can submit your FAFSA. You are permitted a certain number of federal unsubsidized loans as a graduate student. You can also apply to PLUS loans. And then if you're admitted and you submit your FAFSA, we'll send you an award letter letting you know what you received and then walk you through next steps. So to get into the application a little bit, in case you haven't looked at the application requirements, there is an application fee. If the fee is a huge concern to you, get in touch with me and we can discuss it further. But on top of that, you'll need to submit your resume. 2 letters of recommendation, transcripts from all your colleges and universities you attended. You'll have a self-assessment essay, and then there is an optional portfolio. And then international applicants will have additional requirements depending on their undergraduate education. So you might need to submit proof of English proficiency, such as a TOEFL score and a transcript evaluation. All these things I can talk to you more in depth offline or during our Q&A here. But you can also look at the requirements by going to colum.edu/grad-admissions. And then in terms of this program specifically, for the self-assessment essay, there's a number of questions that you need to address. This is kind of just a shortened version of the prompt. But you're going to want to talk about your career goals and why you want to return to school and your reasons for pursuing this degree. And also talk about arts management as a field, like what aspect of it are you interested in, what's your understanding of it. And then it's great to talk about the things listed here, such as your leadership potential and your communication skills. We can get into more in depth in the Q&A as well. But the other 2 things I wanted to at least touch on, because they're commonly asked questions, the optional portfolio. As stated, while optional, we encourage you to upload it. It can really be anything that you think plays to your strengths. When I applied, just to pull on my own experience, I already had a website outlining my creative work because I come from a studio art background. So that was what I ended up submitting. But if you have a project from undergrad, let's say, that you're particularly proud of and you think it's an excellent case study of like who you are as a worker and a professional, then you could submit that as a PDF. Like it can range. And then lastly, the GRE is also optional. One of the reasons we list it here is that commonly when students are looking at management programs, they may have already taken the GRE. Also, if you have some, extenuating circumstances in undergrad, maybe there's a couple week semesters in there in terms of your grades, you could take the GRE, and if you got a good enough score, use that to kind of supplement your education to show your general commitment. But again, you can look at those requirements at colum.edu/grad-admissions. So just a timeline for you as a reminder, you can begin or continue your application at apply.colum.edu/apply. And then the priority deadline here is January 15th, 2021. So just a note on the priority deadline, that means that you want to apply by that date in order to be considered for scholarships. Applications afterward can be accepted on a rolling basis, but you're less likely to receive scholarship funding. It's just the nature of the beast when it comes to figuring out how to allocate those funds. And then, decisions are made within 6 to 8 weeks afterward, maybe a little earlier. Generally, we want to give you your decision so you can tell us your decision by April 15th, which is kind of like the gold standard of graduate decision time for schools across the country. So that's actually it for the presentation. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and stop the recording, and then we can just turn our cameras on and have a chat. Valentine can introduce herself,